another NFC East wide receiver. This is from our Todd Archer. The Dallas Cowboys will place the franchise for George Pickens today to secure his rights at least through 2026, according to sources. So we knew this could be a possibility. Obviously, Stephen Jones told us last week this is what they were leaning towards, and now it becomes official that the Cowboys will franchise tag George Pickens for this upcoming year. Peter, what is your reaction?
That this is expected, but also get ready, buckle up, because George Pickens is the next Cowboy in line that we've seen off-season drama over the last couple of years. It started with Dak a couple of times, never drama with Dak, but, it dragged on. Then it was obviously Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, and last year Micah Parsons, which ended a different way than the others when he actually was traded away. George Pickens, no player wants to necessarily be franchise tagged. George Pickens' agency also represents Micah Parsons. Will make a very interesting conversation with the Dallas Cowboys franchise. But this could drag on quite a bit, and we could be talking about whether George Pickens is at OTAs, whether he is at training camp, and then the question of, okay, how is this going to be settled? Do they eventually have to capitulate and give him that big deal? Truth of the matter is, George Pickens did everything he possibly could have done last year in a show-me year and still didn't get that big deal from the Cowboys. I'm very curious to see if and when George Pickens does show up to Cowboys camp.
Yeah, look, teams always know a lot about what it is that would make them hesitant to go ahead and commit long-term money, long-term guaranteed money to a player than we know. There's always things behind the scenes that either will make them say, hey, you know what? We are willing to go ahead and extend and sign a player to a long-term deal. Or, you know what, we want to hedge our bets and maybe just put the franchise tag on him, although that's cost prohibitive too. I mean, we're talking about carrying a one-year tag at $29 million. You think Dallas really wants to do that? Of course they don't want to do that, considering all the other things that they need to get done. You think they want to continue to just restructure contracts, try and manufacture ways to get under the salary cap, and then just kind of like pay as you go year by year? Of course they don't want to do that. They'd love for this to be cut and dried. But look, there's a lot of different things at play here. One, George has an argument for wanting to be paid like a number one wide receiver. He earned that this year. Dallas knows that. Of course they know that. But they already are paying a guy $33+ million per year. It probably just doesn't make it's not something that really is kind of wise team building, but they also don't want to let him go. Number two, look, contracts are about there's a certain amount of risk that you assume once you don't have the carrot dangling in front of a player any longer, and they have secured long-term financial stability. And with George, you think that for a sec, you think Dallas isn't considering that right now, considering what his past was in Pittsburgh? Of course they are. This isn't easy at all. A very long process because there are a lot of concerns on both sides here that need to really be kind of smoothed out before we arrive at long-term future fair value. There just is.
It's going to be a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake. And here's why. Because it's inviting more drama. It's ensuring that the Dallas Cowboys are going to do what they do better than anybody in the National Football League. Win in terms of quantity of headlines, but not necessarily on the football field. It's going to be listen, we saw a couple of games last year where, listen, I got mad love for George Pickens. The brother's a stud. He's got a great agent in Mulugeta. We all know this. Somebody that Jerry didn't want to negotiate it because that's the same guy that represents Micah Parsons. We get all of that, okay? But here's the reality that's inescapable. In the end, we saw George Pickens on the field on at least a couple occasions where his effort was being questioned. We heard about his petulance in Pittsburgh. I'm not telling you that's a reason he doesn't deserve his money. I'm making the case for, that because that's the situation, he's going to be out there making business decisions. And we know what I mean by that. When you're going across that middle, when you're putting your body on the line, when you're endangering yourself, how anxious are you going to be to do that when you're trying to position yourself to get a long-term bag? Peter, Lewis, we know I'm not making this up. We know this comes with the game. When you franchise a guy, you're basically saying, okay, here's your money for the year. But there's a boatload of money out there to get for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And you're not giving this individual access to that, particularly after a year like this. He's like, okay, I went out there, I balled out, I went all out. I produced for this team. Wasn't my fault we lost. Wasn't CeeDee Lamb's fault we lost. Wasn't Dak Prescott's fault we lost. It was really the fact that we didn't have a defense, okay? So we did our job, and now I got to suffer. I got to suffer because of the decisions that they want to make, and you're just going to ignore this all-out year that I had with 93 receptions, 429 yards, and I had 73 first downs. I had 9 touchdowns. You're not going to pay me now? If you're not going to pay me now, when are you going to pay me? You'll never pay me because I ain't Dak Prescott. I ain't the quarterback. I'm a wide receiver. I'm an expendable piece. So guess what? I got to make sure I position myself where I go someplace where I'm not deemed as expendable. That's what he's going to be out on the field doing at increments. We all know it's going to happen because that's what happens when you shortchange a dude financially on the football field. They make business decisions for their own future. That is what happens. It's a huge mistake by the Dallas Cowboys, but it's indicative of who they are and how they do business. They will certainly win headlines, and they will garner more headlines because we're going to be wondering about the stuff that I just said. And as a result, every newspaper around, every television network around is going to be talking about them. And that's where they will win. But it won't be on the football field because business decisions are going to be made.
That's why Schrager started this segment by buckle up, but I think that's probably why it's going to feel like that. They have a long-term deal. If they're going to come to a long-term deal, they have until July 15th to do that. Otherwise, George Pickens will play on the tag this upcoming season. Coming up here on First Take with SGA returning to the floor tonight, what does this mean for the Spurs' chances of catching OKC in the race for the 1 seed in the West? And look who it is. WWE superstar Seth Rollins is in the building. He's here to preview tomorrow's Elimination Chamber in Chicago, a place he knows a thing or two about. Don't fall. We don't need you further injured.
How are you?
Good to see you. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.